Edge of Chaos, starring Neurotoxin and Joe Ryan. Edge of Chaos is a free-flowing discussion occasionally dealing with mature topics.
You know, Joe, as I was driving over here from California to Texas to visit you, among other people,
long
on
drive.
my way, I saw a Citgo, C-I-T-G-O gas station. Mm-hmm. So I got off the freeway and I filled up gas and I went in their bathroom and took a shit. And when I came out, there's a bunch of Fox News reporters pointing their cameras at me, and they're like, look, Neurotoxin took a shit in a Citgo gas station.
What does that mean about his politics?
Yes, I mean, Citgo, we all know Citgo's gasoline. It comes from Venezuela.
He endorses Chavez.
Yes,
Yeah.
He's Russian. He was born in the USSR. He must secretly be a communist. Is this his idea of popular outreach now? He's driving across these states where you got a lot of Hispanic people. Maybe he's trying to convert people in rural New Mexico. Jesus fucking Christ, Fox News. I mean, I can't. I saw this on the news. When I heard about this, I can't. I have no words. Go, Joe. Take it away.
You guys have seen this, I hope. You've had to have, where Fox turned this Chipotle stop by Hillary Clinton into a week-long, you heard me right, a week-long story in which they're speculating everything from whether or not she tipped. Who the fuck tips at Chipotle anyway?
I didn't tip when I went to Citgo either.
Why she was wearing sunglasses indoors, why a stop for food couldn't have been a campaign appearance, what she ordered. We're not sure if she had the rice and beans or not. Sources are... What the fuck are we doing? Is this what happens when you declare candidacy a full 2 fucking years ahead of the election?
No, hold on.
I mean, Christ
Didn't
on
they
a
also
cracker.
mention it was her Hispanic
one
outreach?
of Fox News lady was like, oh, is this her idea of Hispanic outreach? Oh my God.
That's not racist at all to say something like that. No. Chipotle's is owned by McDonald's for anyone who's
Yeah. It's like saying Taco Bell is Hispanic outreach.
Yeah, that's
come
okay.
the
You know what?
fuck
Fox
on.
News. Here's
stop.
Here's a suggestion. If you don't want to be considered racist,
don't do that shit anymore.
And to bait
Let's
the
start
liberal
there.
media to say all you do is promote racism, maybe you shouldn't say something like that on air. Just a thought.
Okay, I want to start this way.
I can't.
I want to start election chat this way, and I have to deal with the elephant in the room, even though this is about the party that has the donkey in it. Whatever. Hillary. So, okay, she's a candidate now officially. Fine, whatever. I'm going to attack Democrats first, and then I'm going to attack Republicans again, because that's just too fun. So, Democrats everywhere, I must ask you a question. Why are so many of you resorting to saying things like, you can disagree with Hillary all you like, but if you vote Republican or third party, well, then you're to blame for the Mad Maxian hellscape wasteland that will surely result from anyone but Hillary Rodham Clinton being president. And you better just smile and be happy and feel good about your choice because you're being part of America and you're electing a president. I don't like being told what to do. I don't see a movie when everyone's telling me to see it just because everyone's telling me to see it. I'm not as against the society's grain as you are, but it is kind of a little bit of, you know what? Why don't you shut the fuck up and I'll vote for the fuck I want? How about that?
Here's another thing. When you talk about a Mad Maxian landscape and the end of the world and how this country is just going to completely go to hell in a handbasket if you don't vote for our guy, it reminds me of a certain very recent Republican campaign for office. Another candidate was just an old, white, useless
elite,
asshole
rich,
with absolutely nothing to offer but a history of corruption and just corporate camaraderie. And, he's running against a black guy. That didn't help.
Oh,
and I know, right? And he had just absolutely nothing to offer. Now, I'm no fan of Obama, okay? But all his campaign did was trash talk Obama and exaggerate Obama's flaws and talk about all the terrible things that are going to happen if you don't vote for Mitt Romney. There's no reason to vote for Mitt Romney. It's just that if you don't vote for Mitt Romney, the world will end. Well, folks, we're 2.5 years into Obama's second term, and I'm no fan of Obama. I'm not fond of the things he does, but we're still here. The world hasn't ended, so Mitt Romney, Karl Rove, you guys can go fuck yourselves. And I was one of these conservatives that looked at this and just said, nope, I am not having the Republican Party shove this guy down my throat so that they can avoid having to make any internal changes. And now, because of this, I feel like now we actually have a diverse field of candidates with equal chances of success. Now we have Jeb Bush, despite his colossal war chest and everything, not being the front runner, or being the front runner by like 2%, and guys like Paul and Walker actually edging him. It's like, oh shit.
He's beatable. He's way more beatable than I thought, too.
Exactly. Because we let Romney fail. Right. And that, my Democrat friends, is what you need to do. This is, you cannot let these assholes tell you what to do. Now, when it comes to Fox News, I want to go back to that for a minute. I feel like the reason Fox News is going after Hillary this way, they're actually doing the same thing, if you think about it, they did to Obama in 2012. It's like,
no. It was arugula on a sandwich for Obama. Oh, Dijon on a hamburger. What are you, a fucking communist? Christ.
Right, you're supporting Chavez in Venezuela.
Exactly.
Because Fox News is controlled 100% by the Republican establishment. It's the one major network that's really not out for profit. It's just pure a propaganda mill. This is provable. Look who's in charge of it.
Roger Ailes.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of guy that talks about chemtrails and propaganda. And usually I'm the one telling Joe, no. These guys are not that biased. This media, they're just out for profit, and this is the shit that sells.
This guy is.
But with Fox News, no, they're not. They don't care about profit. They care about selling a message.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's top to bottom about selling that message.
Absolutely.
Anyone who doesn't toe that line gets sent the door. Look at Glenn Beck.
Right. And if you start attacking Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or John Kerry or Barack Obama for the things they're actually doing that are unconstitutional and corrupt and wrong, all of your guys like Jeb Bush and Dick Cheney and Mitt Romney and John McCain, they are instantly going to look indistinguishable from Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and John Kerry and Harry Reid.
Because they kind of are.
They kind of are. It's all old white guys and Obama, right? Yeah. It's just, I mean, come on. Well, Hillary's a woman, but old white people and Obama.
I'm sorry, she's an old white guy at this point.
She kind of is, right. Well, we'll get to that. And, right, so what do? You have to sell the message without selling the message. What do? Oh, look, she ate it at Chipotle's. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, it's pathetic.
I mean, Putin's propaganda mill is looking at that going, wow.
Yeah.
We don't even report on where Putin eats.
So, one more thing about the Democratic side of the aisle right now. All you people that just, you don't look at the fact that no one has the balls to run against Hillary except for probably O'Malley, probably Joe Biden, definitely Lincoln Chafee. It was interesting that he announced this week amongst all these Republicans jumping in. Right. So we've got 4 on the Democrat side. We probably have somewhere like 8 or 10 on the Republican side when it's all said and done. We only have 4 declared now, I think. But, the fact that you're so okay with Hillary just, there's documented cases of literally she's bullying people out of this race, it seems like, from behind the scenes. That's the chatter. But if that's the case, I have to say that the fact that you guys are being so self-congratulatory over such a pathetic field, I've not been so disappointed. Like, above all, I want an actual election, an actual debate, an actual choice. Imagine that in an election. This is like Kerry all over again. Really? Another retread. You can't even, and this is the sad part, this year they even ceded the young dynamic mantle to the Republicans. The Republicans are the ones with the young guys. The young dudes, the hip, I'm connected to this generation dudes. Marco Rubio's in his 40s, Ted Cruz is in his 40s.
Rand Paul's only 52.
Hillary's going to be in her 70s by the time she's president. You can't even say that you're the young party anymore. And yet we're all supposed to smile and be happy that, we can finally, now we elected the black guy, now we're allowed to vote for the woman. So why do we have to vote for her just because she's a woman? But anyway, that's bashing the Democrats. Bashing the Republicans.
Let's wait. Let me say my piece. We'll get to the Republicans. I promise.
We'll get to the Republicans.
We will get to the Republicans. We got plenty to say about them. But let me talk about Hillary a little more and address some of what you said. So here's the thing. This is what I'm seeing. Now, as far as the bullying, this is the reason I can't stand Hillary Clinton. I mean, I've never agreed with her policies, but that's 70% of the politicians in this country. I can't stand her because she is a narcissist. She absolutely just acknowledges no faults in herself. She has just that narcissist sociopath smile, and it's just, I'm Hillary Clinton, don't you dare argue with me. And I love it when her supporters want to argue with me because they have nothing. Just like she has, like, how dare you?
As an aside and an addendum to that, why she's going down in flames in this election is that you can go back 20 years with her, because we have 20 years of track history with her as a First Lady, as a Secretary of State, as a Senator.
Yeah.
Ask her a question of an issue. Drug prohibition. How many opinions did she have on that over the years again? 5, 6? I don't know. Gay marriage. How many opinions does she have on that over the years? What is her opinion of that? Gee, I don't know. What is it today? Which way is the fucking wind blowing? Did she land under sniper fire in Bosnia, or a celebratory parade welcoming the First Lady to Bosnia? You know, it's just her relationship with honesty is, let's say, a little rocky at best, a little inconsistent. Anyway.
And I feel like the issue we had, and we've talked about this in private, we haven't talked about it on the show, is Hillary. No one really wants to challenge Hillary because her propaganda machine, her connections are so deep and so powerful that no one wants to declare because they're just going to get beat down by her. Possible exception you've mentioned is Elizabeth Warren, but she just wants to basically, in your opinion, and I agree with you, sit this out, watch Hillary go down in flames, and then run herself
and then
next
run
time.
in 4 years, yeah. Against the Republican who's going to end up winning, because I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Now, as far as the Democratic field, now, of course, Lincoln Chafee, former Republican, very liberal, very much a rhino, not a Republican I'm fond of, Rhode Island Republican, someone that in 2010, during the Red Wave, during the Tea Party wave, was beaten by a Tea Party candidate in the primary, declared himself an independent, ran for governor, and won against both a Republican and a Democrat. Very closely edged out the Tea Party Republican, but he won. So he's now an independent. Now he's another Charlie Crist. Right. Now he's declared himself a Democrat and announced, I'm running for the Democratic primary. Now, this is what happens. I've been talking about this for years.
It took a guy that didn't have to kiss the Democrat ring, the Clinton machine ring, to be in the race. He came around all on his own, from his own path.
I don't know Hillary Clinton.
I don't know anything in this party.
Fuck you. No, I'll bet you he owes Republicans a lot of favors, but not Democrats.
It kind of flows into your thing of these neocons. They're really not that different from your conservative Democrats like Hillary or Kerry or Obama or any of these guys.
Obama originally wasn't a conservative Democrat, but we'll get to that. Now, this guy, I feel like he is being thoroughly underestimated, his impact in this race. First of all, now that he's done it, now all these other Democrats, and undoubtedly they knew he was going to do it. We didn't know about it. They knew this was happening. These guys all know each other. This is nothing. There's no secrets in politics. I can tell you that as someone who has worked in it. Okay? Biden, O'Malley, said possibly not Warren. Webb is another one.
Jim Webb, right.
Right. Even possibly Bernie Sanders. Now that someone's declared, now I'm like, oh, well, now I'm not the asshole challenging Hillary, so here I go.
Hey, there's already another challenger, right? No one wanted. This is like with that any kind of meeting at work. It's like no one wants to be the first one to ask a question.
But once someone does,
then it's a flood. Yeah,
shit, right.
No one wants to be the first one through the
gate. Secondly, this guy, Lincoln Chafee, okay, again, Rhode Island former Republican. Mm-hmm. Now, New England's a very interesting place.
Very.
And it's kind of considered blue, but it's really not that liberal. Just like the South is it's like deep red, but it's not like Ron Paul red.
Well, ask yourself how they could elect Mitt Romney and this new guy as governor. Duval Patrick, was it? Or that was the guy that got voted out?
No.
Whatever it was.
Yeah. So you do Chris Christie.
Yeah.
You have these these rhino Republicans. So if you run one of them on the Democrat ticket, Hillary needs those states. She needs the support.
Right.
And this guy, if you look at his policies, he is completely indistinguishable. In fact,
it's that 2% difference. We always talk about.
I don't know. I haven't done enough research on him to know the answer. If this is true. If this is consistent of him. But right now, what is he hitting her on? Being pro-war, supporting Bush Jr. in war. Okay,
standing side by side by him. That undid Kerry too, in part.
Let's and Hillary in 2008 with Obama. Let me put this in perspective for you folks. You now have a Republican, former Republican now running for a Democratic nomination, throwing at a Democrat, the Democrat frontrunner. She was pro-war and I was anti-war. Now, you're going to have Rand Paul doing that if they get to the generals, but that's Rand Paul.
Right.
Everyone knows that about the Pauls.
Exactly.
This is now a centrist Republican. Okay, Rand Paul hits you with that. You can hit him back with, yes, but you're anti-welfare, you're anti-Social Security, you're anti-Medicare. That's what Hillary's going to try to at least carry the older vote on from him. How do you do that against Lincoln Chafee within your own party? You're not arguing with Republicans. You're not arguing with the center vote. You're fucked.
At some point, she has to be on a debate stage and explain how the fuck she, especially. And here's the thing. I've gotten arguments with people who try to let her off the hook for both of those, and it's like, you know what? No. I don't care how long ago it was. She voted for that war. Fact. Fact.
Twice.
Let's not fucking mince words here. She voted for it. I don't give a shit. The intelligence of this and that. You either stick to a value or you don't. The idea of us, I didn't give a shit. You and I were debating this when there was not a microphone in front of us to do it at the time. We knew it was a giant mistake. Were we military experts? Or world diplomats? No. Any idiot with 2 fucking brain cells who doesn't own stock in Halliburton knew this was a gigantic fucking huge clusterfuck waiting to happen. And what happened? Exactly what we thought. Really, she thought that Bush was above board. Really, she trusted him. Really, she trusted that his message was
If you're a Democrat that trusts Bush Jr., you don't belong anywhere near the White House.
And then she's Secretary of State. And, what has happened in Iraq in that time since she was Secretary of State? Her and Kerry, both Iraq war voters, voting in the affirmative. What has happened over there since they've been in charge? Jesus Christ. Well, yes, George Bush made the mess. Have they cleaned it up? No. It's just gotten worse and worse.
It's not just Iraq.
And it's not just Iraq. Now Yemen's on fire. Libya's on fire.
Yeah, we'll address those.
Syria's on fire.
But those are all after Hillary's time. Egypt.
There's another one. No, I've mentioned Egypt with people. Yes.
Who's a murdering psychopath.
It was like a few days before he was obvious he was going to be pulled out of there on a stake if he didn't leave voluntarily.
And Hillary
then they finally turned on him.
No, they never turned on him. He resigned before Hillary turned on him. Hillary was sitting, she was the Secretary
There is
of
a
State,
soundbite there years ago saying that he considers Mubarak's personal friends, too. I heard that.
Oh, isn't that
charming? That is her version of Rumsfeld shaking Saddam's hand. That's her version of that.
Can't extend your support for murdering military dictators and then turn around and claim you're against war and you're against civil rights abuse.
And now we support the people to vote in their own thing. Yeah, right.
You can't. If you do that, and this is why diplomats and secretaries of state have such a hard time running for office. Because they have to do some of the dirtiest, most disgusting shit on behalf of our government. And I understand a lot of times they have to do it. But you can't take that away. This woman's a sociopath. She's supporting this guy that's doing all this. And but she's peace, and she's liberal, and she's on what fucking planet?
Well, and this whole I want to touch on this because Taibbi wrote this article in Rolling Stone. He hit her hard.
Oh yeah,
on this shit,
the progressives are not
her
eating
fake,
it, and that makes me happy.
Her fake populism, he called it. And it's the same cycle all the time. She said a couple of things like the first day or two of her announcement after Chipotle, Fox News, fucking chill out. Where she's like, "Oh, I need a champion. We need to get all the dirty money out of politics, and I would support a constitutional amendment." Yeah, okay.
Isn't that like George W. Bush saying all the oil money and all the Halliburton money out of politics?
Completely empty, platitude-based, just shit coming out of her mouth. She has no intention of doing any of that. If you believe that, I have a bridge in Florida or Texas to sell you right now, okay? It's real nice. It's only been used on Sundays, believe me. Anyway, and then this is the cycle that Taibbi wrote about. Candidate says populist thing. People go, ooh, that's, wow, okay. Everyone oohs and ahs over it for a couple of days. And then the editorials start trickling out from the certain sources that are connected to other certain sources that are like, Wall Street, oh, we didn't take her seriously. Oh, it was a brilliant game. It was a brilliant tactic. Yeah, that's all it is a tactic. It's a soundbite. It makes for good media coverage. It's not a thing she's going to do, believe me. If she didn't have dark money, she wouldn't be able to run. Let's just put it that way. That's the way the system is built now.
Yes, and another place
he hit her hard. It's phony, and we should call it out as phony.
And here's another place this goes. This will be a great place to transition to actually a couple of things, but Republicans as well. Another big thing that I'm seeing in this same liberal propaganda mill with she's whatever, just complete stereotypes, zero actual factual information to back any of this shit up. Oh, we need to vote for her because she's a woman. We need a woman president, and if she
and she's a woman, let's vote her in.
If we don't have, I actually saw an idiot on Facebook post this, that if you don't vote in Hillary Clinton, then you're not letting us break the cycle, and it may be 20 years before we get another woman into the White House.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to mention something about that too.
Here's a couple things. First of all, okay, saying that you should vote for someone because of their gender, regardless of what their gender is misogyny. You can't just shut up. You can't argue with that. That's what
voting
it is.
Voting for the black guy just because he was black is racism.
Racism. You can't get around that. Okay, that's one.
Yeah.
But here's the difference between those two things. And I'm gonna catch hell for this, and I want it because it's true, even though it's unpleasant. Okay, this is reality. When you had Barack Obama running, you had record minority turnout. Not just record black turnout, record ethnic minority turnout.
He's a Latino vote. He got a lot of it too.
And record black voting for the same guy. And it was like
86, 98, or 93, 88, something like that.
No, 98, 93, I think. It's way up there. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I hate to tell you this, because somehow most people arguing politics, and this is, again, being discriminatory, but predominantly liberal. Somehow they don't understand this. That the number one factor in any American election, big or small, turnout. So you look at polls with Hillary Clinton, and of course, liberal media grab this and they run with it. And it drives me, it makes me sick. But how did this work for you in 2014? Look at, we do polls of registered voters, and these polls say that Hillary Clinton is leading every Republican at this point, I think, by 5-6 points. I don't give a shit. Your polls suck. They're not representative because they're polling all registered voters. How did that work out for you in 2014? All the polls said every race is going to be very close, and then Republicans just hit that out of the ballpark.
For the
Why?
most part, yeah.
Because the people who typically vote Democrat didn't turn out.
They sat their ass at home.
They didn't turn out because the Democratic Party failed to sell its message to them. You can blame the Republicans, and you can blame voter obstructionism and fraud. You can blame anything you want. You can pass off responsibility. That's why you're voting for Hillary Clinton, because you think it's cute to pass off responsibility. But the reality is, when you have 36% turnout, you really can't blame anything else. You just suck. And let me tell you something about Hillary Clinton, okay? When you had the black guy voting, when you had the black guy running, minorities, the poor, they turned out and they voted people who'd never voted before and never will again.
They were like old women, old African American
women, yes,
that hadn't voted in decades.
Right. Yeah. They came out and they voted because it was a black guy. But guess what? First of all, a lot of minorities and poor people in this country are still very socially conservative. And whereas I think a woman is equally qualified to be president as a man, a lot of them don't. Just like a lot of rednecks in Texas don't. And they will not turn out to vote for a woman precisely because she's a woman.
Yeah, we're not making a judgment. We're deciding that
you
this
don't
is
like
so.
it,
Yeah.
but it's reality.
And I have to say, there's no way she'll get the kind of demographic turnout that Obama did.
Number two,
it's not translatable.
Number two, the whole, she's a woman, that's a white, suburban, hippie thing. It's bullshit. Two, minorities, and I've worked with tons of minorities and poor minorities, old, young, in very poor neighborhoods, crime-ridden, and all that. To them, Hillary Clinton is just another old, white, rich insider politician. Her gender means nothing. If it were a black woman, maybe. Not her. She is going to have the devil's task turning out those demographics, not just in the generals, but now in the primaries, because now people are actually growing the balls to challenge her. And that brings me to the other side, and we can shift to Republicans with this, okay? I can tell you right now, as a libertarian, I have never voted major party in my life. But if you put Hillary Clinton on the Democratic ticket and you put Darth Vader on the Republican, I'm voting for Darth Vader. And like I said, I despise both parties. Every libertarian, every evangelical, everyone in this country that's not a safe Democrat vote, anyone that closes their eyes and votes Republican because they don't like the Democrats, this is what happened in 2004 with Kerry, is going to vote for whoever is on the Republican ticket. So Republicans, there is no better way to help Republican turnout than putting Hillary on the Democratic ticket. I hate to tell you this, she does not stand a chance. Despite the media machine, despite her money.
Despite Fox News' laughable coverage of her and missing her legitimate failures to comment on where she eats. I would just to close out Hillary, I just want to say, you know what? any progressive who comes at me and tries to say, you know what, you just don't like women politicians. You know what? My top right now is Elizabeth Warren on the Democrat side. So that's
And
A.
she's a woman. Last
That's
night I
A.
checked.
G, I also checked she's a woman. B, it's like this entire idea that you have to vote for just any woman, it just insults the fuck out of me. And it should insult every woman, too. Because it's like, oh, just every woman is equally qualified the same? We shouldn't judge their individual merits or treat them like humans with different principles and differing ideologies. We should just, one woman is the same as the other. How's that not saying, every black person is the same?
Misogyny, yes.
I mean, it's prejudice of one kind or another. So, no. You know what? Don't come at me with, you just have to vote her in because you're supposed to because she's a woman. You know what? Fuck you. Bring me a qualified woman who's worth the job and who can live up to it. Then I'll think about it, all right? You know, the day with Elizabeth Warren's there, I'll be proud to cast my vote for a woman. That idea is just so repellent to me.
And me too,
It just has to be her because she's a woman and it's time. You know, then we should have voted a better woman in years ago then. Fine. How about that? It's like, you're framing the argument in such a way that you win. No, it doesn't work like that. This is the real world. So anyway.
And on that same note, if you had actually Elizabeth Warren on the Democrat ticket, honestly, I would prefer her to most of the Republicans, save Rand Paul, maybe one or two others. But so it's really, the gender has nothing to do with it. It's just it's a cheap way to sell a candidate.
It's being trumped up by Democrats because that's really the only thing they can do with her.
Really,
at this point.
She has nothing.
She's a woman. It would be
offer.
Historic. Come on, you did that last time and it was great, right? Well, kind of.
It wasn't great.
It was okay.
Well,
I guess. There were moments, whatever. Anyways, Republicans.
That brings us to the flashing, playing music clown car of the Republican field. I mean, Jesus Christ! We've hit them many times, and it just never gets old.
Oh God!
I mean, okay. So first of all, I want to start with actually back with Fox News. What fucking planet are you guys on? I mean, you won't even cover your own candidates now. Because with the exception of Jeb, just another Bush.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's all the guy is. With the exception of him, every Republican candidate is now so anti-establishment, you can't even close your eyes and pretend. It's done. That's it. The Republican Party of George Bush is dead. It's finished. You can't have it back. It's over. Get the fuck in the other party with Hillary Clinton where you belong.
Yeah, with Charlie Crist and Lincoln Chafee.
And Lincoln Chafee. I mean, at least those guys figured out which party they're supposed to be with.
You can debate your 2% differences over there, okay?
Go, please go.
All in your same caucus like you should be.
Right. And then I believe, so let me start, let's actually start with the obvious. Let's start with George W. Bush's younger brother. I'm going to keep framing him that way.
He's the smart one.
Well, against George W. Bush, let's say you have the smart one against your desk here, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, look. This guy keeps, and I'm not even seeing this from Fox News, I'm not seeing this from CNN. His whole campaign is, I am not my brother.
Not a good way to start things out,
dude, I'm supposed to vote for you because you're not George W. Bush now? I mean,
I'm not W stupid. I'm less stupid. I'm more like my dad. See?
Wait. Your brother lasted 2 terms, guy. Just want to remind you of that.
The part of my brother that lasted 2 terms, but the part of my dad that was really good for one.
I'm my grandfather.
Oh, look, I have a Latino wife.
Who was accused of transferring Nazi bank accounts to Argentina, pre-Scott Bush. That's what he was proven, just accused. I'm like him, actually.
Of course.
That's why I have my Latino connections. By the way, if you want the Latino vote, don't call them Latino. Just a quick suggestion from a social worker.
Yeah, I was using that word intentionally.
Well, I know, right. I know, because that's what he uses.
To bring that up, yeah.
Okay? It's like, Jeb, put down your daughter's crack pipe. Seriously?
I forgot about that.
Didn't he have that? And then he said, our family is going through a tough time, so...
Mr. Anti-Drug,
Right, so we would like people's sympathy as you're locking people up, because Florida, they actually
did
that. Dude, who are you kidding? Why are you in this? And I'll tell you, he's a big problem, because what you're going to do is you're going to split the ticket. You have absolutely no chance, but you're going to split the ticket, and you're going to make it that much more difficult for a Scott Walker or a Rand Paul once they're in the generals with Hillary Clinton. I mean, these establishment guys, they burst blood vessels about how Rick Santorum and Ron Paul and Mike Huckabee in '08, they're splitting the ticket and they're making it more difficult for the mainstream guys against Obama. But now now that the mainstream guy is in the minority, now somehow this is okay. Let's just pump him. Are you fucking kidding me? And by the way, if your daughter is getting arrested for drugs while you're locking people up for pot, how are you gonna sell me on I'm different from my brother?
Yeah, really.
Or my dad. It's like, come on, these rhino guys. It's like they literally live in their own freaking reality. They're more detached than Hillary Clinton, and I never thought I'd hear myself say that.
Yeah. So let's move on to another. You mentioned W. Let's move on to another unintelligent man-child. My own senator, Mr. Ted Cruz.
Well,
as I call him, the Republicans' Obama. Now, the similarities are thus. He's been in the Senate for, 2 minutes or so? I'm rounding up. And he proved himself on many occasions to be a complete fucking half-wit with how the Senate actually works, because he's barely been there any time at all. And he wasn't even born in this country. He was born in Canada to a Cuban guy. I mean, so it's like, I don't want to start a whole birther thing. All I'm saying is, he's more of a foreigner than Obama, just for virtue of not being born in this country. Obama was. Prove me wrong. If you just prove me wrong. So anyways, but the mere fact that, and I can't even, his announcement was at Liberty University. It was a required mandatory. You remember how you loved the words mandatory in high school? When you had to go somewhere? I think my favorite was the students that were...
The Rand Paul kids,
I can't figure out if that's my favorite. The kids there in Rand Paul t-shirts, because, they had to be there. They didn't have to wear certain clothes, though, so they did what you would have did. Wear a fucking Rand Paul shirt. Or the kids who were just nodding off in their chairs or probably playing Candy Crush on their phones while this guy drones on and on. I mean, it's just so pathetic. This guy, what are his credentials? I mean, I have to honestly ask you that, and I know that I've gotten arguments with you that you or at least you did. Maybe you've changed this now. We used to use Ted Cruz and Rand Paul interchangeably, Totally different.
Well,
totally different. Rand Paul has shown political savvy already, and he's got more of a political, let's say, background than Ted does. I don't remember if he came from the state government at all.
No. He was the Attorney General, I believe. Or Secretary of State.
Of Kentucky,
Texas.
right.
No. You're talking about Ted. I'm talking about Ted. No.
Right.
Rand didn't come from political experience. Ted did.
Well, Bill Rand was part of his dad's kind of political
I don't think so.
thing,
No, I don't think Rand was ever involved in his dad's politics. I think Rand was the one that came from no experience whatsoever. Whereas Ted has been in politics for a while. Well, when your dad's a
lifelong politician, though, I mean, you see the machinery at some point.
It's very hard to make those kind of judgments. I don't know.
Really now we're getting into a dynastic argument. Right, you could say with Rand, he's just inheriting his father's
thing. Let me try to defend Ted from a completely different perspective.
Ted just seems like a child to me.
Let's discredit some myths about Ted. First of all, the Rand Paul and the Ron Paul connection. So Ted Cruz was endorsed by Ron Paul for Senate in 2012, right?
Yeah, when he got elected,
yes. Like you said, only a couple of years. So, in the Republican primary, where he was running against, I don't know if he still is, but he was at the time, the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, David Dewhurst, who was the Rick Perry candidate. So, this was a very interesting. Of course, this is 2012 when the Ron Paul campaign is going on. Mm-hmm. And Ron Paul originally had a different guy in that primary. His name was Glenn Addison. I forget where he was from. I believe he was either a state senator or maybe a congressman. I'm not sure who he was. That was who Ron Paul's campaign and all the people involved, that was who they endorsed. And that guy he didn't place top 2 in the primary. The number 2 guy, and the primaries here, if you get 50%, you win outright. If you don't get 50%, it's a runoff.
Top 2
Dewhurst got 48%, and Ted Cruz got I want to say in the 30s, and then everyone else was way in the back. So Ted Cruz picked up, obviously, a lot of the evangelical vote, and a lot of the kind of backwoods Texas, very religious. He's from there, I believe, at least he's spent time there, but that's who agreed with him. So the whole Ron Paul machine got behind him instantly. They got behind him for several reasons. For one, they're trying to wrestle control of this state from Rick Perry. and from that junta. And this has got to be done. I would take Ted Cruz over Rick Perry any day of the week. Or David Dewhurst.
I'm not going to resist the chance to shit on Rick Perry. Another probable
or Greg
candidate.
Abbott, for that matter.
Greg Abbott,
no.
right.
Rick Perry is not running. That's a joke. Now, here's the thing. This, and I mean, we can talk about this where there's actually more shows that we may do on Texas politics just because of the connection we have here now. This state, as much as I'm enjoying being in this state, I'm liking Texas, I'm liking the culture here, but some of the neocon policies here, like recently, a former contributor of ours messaged me, she was talking about how now they're moving funding from HIV clinics and free tests and all that to abstinence-only education. Now, let me tell you...
Just don't
as
fuck.
an empiricist, because that works. Telling people
that
not
works
to fuck,
so well,
in
Africa especially, it works a ton.
Here's the thing. Well, we're civilized. We're not like them folks in Africa.
Oh, well, of course.
Here's the thing. Yeah, we don't fuck. Here's the thing, okay? As an empiricist, as someone that looks at policy, social science, and empirical perspective, there are a lot of policies, there are a lot of things that are not proven to work. So you put a policy and you say, well, this is our intention, we think it'll work, it's not really proven to work. But it takes a particularly shitty policy to be proven not to work. It's very rare that you can prove a negative. And abstinence-only education is actually in that category.
Oh,
it's
totally.
been proven not to work. Now, I am very conflicted about public health and state control of public health funding. But come on, HIV...
But if anything, it's
really
been proven that when they have abstinence-only policies, incidence of teen pregnancy and disease, all that, shoot way up every time.
And when you take away HIV clinics and free testing facilities, there's an
infections go
HIV.
up,
You really want HIV walking around in the streets undetected and are you fucking kidding me? And
makes you want to choose abstinence as an adult around here,
but
just to
you
be safe.
can't. But who does that, right? Yeah. See, now you're saying what Greg Abbott wants to hear, and this is if you were doing cuts and you're saying we need to privatize this, not farm it out, but privatize it. We need to look at local solutions. Okay, I'd be behind that. But you're not doing that. You're moving money from a policy that seems to be working, from a policy proven not to work. What the fuck is wrong with you?
And if anything, proven to do the exact opposite of what it says it does. And it's all because of Jeebus. Let's not mince words about that. That's why. It's Jeebus. Jeebus says not to fuck.
I disagree completely.
You can't.
I disagree 100% with you on that part. This is how you, at least at first glance, pick up the evangelical vote by saying that. But the reality is, just like with the abortion clinics with Rick Perry, and these guys have their hands this deep, elbow deep. Yeah, that was stupid. We're not a video show. Elbow deep in the interest of control. Just like abstinence-only education, the same thing with Rick Perry. His wife owns like half the health clinics in the cities.
The ones who are accredited to do abortions?
Right.
Yeah, imagine that,
you're
right?
Basically, this is a very neocon, rhino thing to do, is you use supposedly socially conservative policy. All you're really doing is restricting civil liberty and restricting who can do certain types of business to people that are affiliated with you. This is the kind of thing that's got to stop.
Even Rick Scott is looking at this shit going, damn.
Right, exactly. It's the same shit, or Jeb Bush, too. Now,
for that matter.
Right. So... this is the kind of thing that, obviously, Ron and Rand Pauls of the world are very much against. And to remind you, Ron Paul is from this state.
Yes, he is.
So, when it came down to David Dewhurst versus Ted Cruz, of course he endorsed Ted Cruz. Because who the fuck is he going to endorse? Another Rick Perry? No, fuck that guy. And you needed it. And that David Dewhurst is a fucking nut. If you've seen some of the shit he's done in the state Senate...
I've heard some of his radio bits.
That guy just... Wow, I can't. So, he's just your typical... Texas, white, rich, pretty boy rhino with no connection to the reality whatsoever. This guy floats above the earth. He's so fucking out of it. So, of course he endorsed Ted Cruz. And Rand Paul came out and publicly said, I want this guy for alliances, for what do you call it? For having someone to work with in the Senate, because Rand Paul was pretty isolated his first couple of years. Now you got a few guys that are more with...
And he's got... He works with Cory Booker, Democrats.
Well, I'm just talking about Republicans within the caucus. So yes, now, as far as Ted Cruz himself goes, I really... Where I used to defend him, and there's still things I defend him on, is where I felt that he was consistent. And it's getting to the point where it's like, Ted, what happened, dude? Did you stop taking your meds or something?
Well, you kind of like this childlike way of throwing wrenches into the Senate machinery, but...
I still like that.
That backfired spectacularly in the lame duck session when he I think he forced a floor vote, and then all of a sudden Harry Reid came in and was like, oh, great, here's all these judicial appointments you guys have been holding up for the last 2 years. Right. Now we're bringing it up for a vote. Bam, 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 bam. And that was a major fuck-up.
Yes, and I appreciate that
the Republicans were trying to hold back any vote because they knew he would do that. Harry Reid, you got to put it past him. The guy knows every little bit.
He's
very smart about the parliamentary procedure.
Yes.
He's been there so long. He knows every little obscure rule.
Okay, now here's
he schooled this guy. He showed his ignorance big time.
But as much as obviously that's a very legitimate criticism, at the same time, you have to admire the brass balls on it. Because he didn't understand what he was doing, but what he was trying to do, he was not worried about creating gridlock. He was actually standing behind his principles. How many politicians do that? That's a Ron Paul thing. It's just you can't do that and be ignorant about it. You have to know what the fuck you're doing if you're going to stand up to the establishment.
I don't remember Ron Paul doing something that monumentally stupid.
That's what I'm saying. And he knew what the fuck he was doing.
One man standing behind his policies is another man's going to Iraq because it's what I want to do. And that's my principles. And I'm standing by him, and I'm just going to keep doing the wrong thing, even though I know it's the wrong thing.
I have to.
Because I just have to stick to my principles.
I have to admit this. I do respect George W. Bush for that. It was Congress's job to stop him, and they didn't. It was stupid.
Whoa.
But he believed
You can't let him off the hook for being stupid.
Oh, it's idiotic. It's an idiotic policy. What I respect him for is simply saying, no, this is the policy. I'm not going to change it because people disagree with it.
But you know why that's stupid, though? Is when you get new information or different information or information that totally contradicts the information that you did that thing for in the first place. Don't you at some point have to go... You have the self-realization to just go, maybe I was wrong.
Right, and that's where you're crossing the line, right?
It takes a lot to admit, maybe I was wrong. And, sticking to a principle is fine. I think if Obama had stuck to his supposed principles, he would have made a much better president. Instead, he's definitely detaining people. But, when you learn that the thing you did is completely the opposite of what you should have done, you should at least have the self-awareness and the accountability to go, no, I fucked up. But no, the advice of George Bush, they just keep... Well, now I'm just doing it, and we're just doing it because we're doing it.
So you're saying that's what Ted Cruz is going to be now.
Right. He doesn't have the self-awareness. He's a child, so I'm just doing things. I don't even know why half the time. I'm just doing things.
This is my first red flag for Ted Cruz, and it's something that very few people notice, but I noticed a lot of libertarians pointed out, is there's a speech that he gave when the two states, Colorado and Washington, passed legalized marijuana. And Ted Cruz came out and gave the speech that, yes, marijuana should be legal, and yes, marijuana prohibition is idiotic, blah, 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 blah. But the federal government should not stop enforcing these laws until it's federally made legal.
What a wonderful example of what I was just talking about.
Ted, listen to me. The federal government does not enforce those laws in the states. In fact, now you're talking about eroding the 10th Amendment. Yes. The whole point is that this is a 10th Amendment issue. If the states don't want to enforce this, the feds can only go after major drug dealers that are hauling it across borders, and those guys need to be locked up. They're dangerous. Now, the best way to get rid of them is to just legalize it, because they'll be scrubbing my windows, but that's not the point.
They don't have a product to haul without the law.
Right. Yeah. That's not, and without closed borders. But that's not the point. The point is that the feds don't do that. So now you, Mr. Constitutionalist Hero Limited Government, you're completely ignoring one of the most important things in the Constitution. People do not realize how important the 10th Amendment is. Now you're saying federal agents need to go in and do what the states have been doing for the last 100 years, 200 years, and basically just basic law enforcement, because the states are refusing to enforce a federal law.
So and you're supposed people to bust medical marijuana dispensaries in California. He wants them to do that. The
feds, not just the
feds.
People. He wants the feds to do it. And this is a guy that was a state attorney general, if I'm not mistaken, and is supposed to be a constitutional lawyer. And I'm looking at this like, dude, you okay there? Are you feeling okay? You feel your head a little bit like, holy fuck. Yeah. And then some of the things he said about evolution and just science in general, when this man starts talking about religion, he gives me the creeps.
Yes.
I'm like, and it's interesting, and we can transition to our next person. When I look at Ron Paul and Rand Paul, they are very, very religious. People somehow miss, and a lot of libertarians forget, these guys are very religious.
Very. Yes,
Ron Paul, they're very socially conservative, but they're very clear. Both of them. And Rand Paul has impressed me because he's done this too. And he said, these are my personal values, but this is what I think the government should do. I'm just not seeing that from Ted. Ted goes off.
And it was Jon Stewart actually kind of laughed off his answer to a question about like gay marriage and stuff recently, and that it was kind of dodgy, and it kind of was a little bit. But you know what?
Rand or Ted?
Rand. He's trying to. I mean, admittedly, it's a thorny thing, especially when you're looking at it in light of he's trying to give an answer that doesn't torpedo him in a Republican race, which is when you're dealing with Ted Cruz being on the other side, it's difficult. But he was I heard him trying to at least account for the fact that people are free to do what they want to do, in some regard. He was trying to hit on some of the things we hit on in one of the last shows we did about you can't force someone else to go along with it and expect that they like it too, and that's realistic. So but at least he's thinking about it. He's not just parroting off some soundbite answer or reading what he thought his Bible said that day or whatever it is.
That day, but not the next day.
Right.
Right.
He's not just clubbing you over the head with a Bible, at least. You could talk, on a certain day, you could talk me into voting for that guy. He's done other things that I don't like, and he's gone back on some of his better opinions, like the defense budget and dealing with Iran and things like that. But I think some of those are calculations. I hope
let's talk about him a little bit more. Okay, so first of all, on the gay marriage, I just want to clarify a couple things. And this is an argument that I had with someone, and I tore her to shreds because she was being an idiot, but that's beside the point. With Rand, his view on gay marriage is thus. He disagrees with it, personally. He thinks it's inappropriate. He thinks marriage is between a man and a woman. That's his personal opinion. And I get a lot of liberals like, oh, he's against gay marriage. No, he's not. He's entitled to his personal views. That's the First Amendment. Go fuck yourself. However,
right, and I agree with that. Even though I disagree with his views.
And Ron Paul, by the way, has exactly the same opinion.
Correct.
What he has said, though, is he said that, first of all, he agreed with the only Republican in Senate to openly come out and say, I agree with the ruling against DOMA, against the Defense of Marriage Act, that was appropriate. And he said, I quote, the federal government is not constitutionally authorized to define marriage. That's the appropriate way to look at this. Not, gays should be able to marry because straight people should get married, because then you're opening all sorts of doors, right? This is exactly the point. The government should not be telling people who should marry. You're not going to get equity by adding classes. There's always going to be a class that's left out.
Right, and it's funny because I've heard progressives agree with that logic.
Right.
Like, maybe we should just take the government out altogether, just have marriage be a religious thing only or something.
And
whatever.
he went further, and he said that, honestly, the government should not be defining marriage at any level, not just federal. So yes, Ron Paul is talking about leaving it up to the states. That's kind of similar because as a president, federal senator, he's not really talking about state laws. But he's saying, honestly, what he said, we need to redefine the civil codes and the tax codes to where marriage is not really the issue. And I'm like, bingo. That's exactly what we need to do. Because then, the problem, again, it gets lost in the propaganda, just like it did with the 60s and the Civil Rights Act. It's now, if you use a racial slur in public, you get in trouble. But the discrimination hasn't gone anywhere. And it's the same thing. The problem with gay marriage, in my opinion at least, is the tax code. In health insurance, child adoption, inheritance, that kind of stuff.
Having rights to make medical decisions on your partner, things like that. Right.
Yes.
We put it all under the umbrella of marriage, and that's
right.
I can see the part
there's
of that.
States adding, actually, I think most states have done it now, adding homosexuals to protected lists against discrimination. People, that's not the problem. So Rand Paul really is and where's Hillary on this, by the way?
Well, like I said, we still don't know.
Well, yeah. Where is she today on this?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, which way is the wind blowing?
Right.
Anyways?
Rand Paul is the one that has said specifically, this is the logical answer. And a lot of the blowback, not blowback, just the idiotic rhetoric that I've gotten from Democrats is basically they're uncomfortable with how complicated that sounds. But guess what? Politics is complicated. This guy's smart.
This
like
issue is complicated.
Right.
It's proven to be complicated.
Right. So they get into it and they're like, oh, so he hasn't really defined his view. No, he's defined his view. You're just too stupid to get it.
Well, it's not because it's a wonky answer because it's a wonky issue.
See, I don't think wonky answers are a bad thing. I think politicians should be wonky. They should be.
We're too conditioned to just expect the little soundbite. Bring them on. We're going to get these terrorists. We're going to America, land of the free, home of the brave. Like, we're very big on mottos and cliche sayings in this country.
I think humans in general are big on that, and complication scares us, but we're scared of our own complexity. But let's talk a little bit about foreign policy with Rand Paul, real quick. And what you're saying, that he's kind of backed off.
He signed the Iran letter. He's for expanding the defense budget now. He said those things.
He's
even though
for
in the past,
expanding the budget? You haven't heard this.
He said that.
The Iran letter I'm familiar with, but I don't necessarily
that.
think that... See, Iran, we really need to do a separate show on Iran, because I feel like Iran is...
We'll have time.
Legitimately...
It's like 2 years away.
It's legitimately turning into a threat. And I think that we're so... Like, the neocon side, Democrats are so fixated on ISIS... I want to talk about that. They forget who the real threat is. But
did you see that he's been fending off attacks from both sides?
Who, Rand?
Yes.
About?
Everything. Now, the Republican side, the guy leading the attacks on him, and I forget his name, but he was the same guy who was in charge of the group that swift-boated John Kerry. And they were running ads on him in Iowa.
Yes.
After he announced, like, just destroying him and just painting him as a nut and a fringer and a libertarian.
How'd that work out?
Like, you know...
As a libertarian? John Kerry or Rand Paul?
Rand Paul.
Oh, okay.
It's the same guy who led the attack on John Kerry.
Right, okay.
Which is probably one of the more disgusting things I've ever seen in politics. Short of, like, George Bush claiming that John McCain had an out-of-wedlock African-American child. Anyways, it's dirty pool. It's just the dirtiest of dirty pool. And this guy is a noted dirty pool player. And the neocon establishment, Rand is their worst nightmare. Because he doesn't pay homage to any of those same guys. Any of the big business moneyed interests. You know, he's as much of an outsider to them as someone like Elizabeth Warren is. And that's the interesting wrinkle in someone like Rand gaining steam, because it's all populist.
Yeah, and I feel like honestly, Rand, and again, I do have my issues with Rand. We need to talk more about him, and like Joe said, we'll have time. I feel like at least domestically, he's also the only mainstream candidate now wanting to address things from our last show, like the militarization of police.
Right, and like I said, if he outwardly and demonstrably makes that a major issue, I would stump for him, especially against Hillary.
Right, and now Rand, if you look at Rand, and some of the other guys are talking, and I mean, you can do a 2-hour show on these guys: Scott Walker, Ben Carson.
Oh God!
It's just the clown car is just
filled
to the brim.
Ben Carson is and it's not just because he's black. He's the Herman Cain of this race.
It's just it's
the kind of outsider. Did something else for a career. I don't. It's just if you listen to this guy talk for more than 10 minutes, he's really
like wow, dude.
Wow.
He makes Ted Cruz sound like
you haven't popped your head out of your doctor's office in a while, have you? Like, people think doctors are so worldly. No, they're really good at what they do, and I tech support doctors for a job. Believe me, they're idiots on anything that requires any kind of skill besides fixing the particular specialty of medicine they do.
Yeah, and they're also, it takes so much specialization to do that they're really not involved in anything else.
There's no time to learn anything else.
I've worked in medicine for a long time, not a doctor.
He's the guy who watched Fox News in his med school dorm when he was, done working on a cadaver all day long. That's where he got his opinions, and then he'll say something stupid, and all the Fox News types will applaud. It's like, ooh, okay, this is just training at this point. He's just saying it because he likes the good reaction he gets.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
the Pavlovian.
He's the vanity candidate of this election.
But it's so they can say they have a black guy on a ticket.
That
basically,
too.
it's always a token black guy. Now, going back to Rand, because something I want to address from more of a turnout, a civics perspective. Rand Paul, by far, is the only Republican candidate so far that was announced. Now, others will announce. And there's another one we haven't hit that I want to hit. It's Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
On Rand Paul,
the youngest one.
Right, Rand Paul is the only candidate that can appeal way outside the Republican Party. Okay, he can appeal to moderates. He can appeal to progressives.
He can kind of get people like me going, maybe I'd vote for him.
But he can also get evangelicals. Evangelicals, with George W. Bush, they turned out because it was John Kerry, okay, and they didn't like John Kerry. But with McCain and with Romney, evangelicals sat out, libertarians voted third party, and Obama won.
Right.
So Rand Paul is the one guy where those votes, they're not, if it's Hillary, they may turn out for the Republican anyway. But this is one that libertarians and evangelicals will turn out for enthusiastically. They're like, yep, this guy, he's our guy.
I've even seen libertarians, they'll go, well, he's not his dad, but you know what? It's way better than any of the others. It's the closest we're going to get.
Evangelicals
even if it's grudging vote, it's still a vote.
It's not fully grudging, though. And evangelicals are going to say, well, he's not Mike Huckabee. He's not Rick Santorum, but
he is a Christian man, so fuck it.
And he says he's true to his values, but he feels like some people have a right not to be. Okay, right? Like that's something that you can kind of. And then you've got the progressives. So this is I would think if I were in the Republican section, I'd be pushing this guy. This is the guy that's gonna mop the floor with Hillary and never apologize for it. But no, you don't see him doing that. You see them trying to torpedo him the same way they tried to torpedo Ron Paul. And people, it didn't work. Ron Paul was the person who chewed out the center of the Republican Party and left Romney to rot. That was a big.
Well, it makes you wonder. Didn't he place a lot of his people in the state machinery now? The state party machinery.
There is quite a bit, yes, in the state machinery and the local. Yeah, a lot of the Republican Party has actually been taken over by Paul people, and they're of course all supporting Rand Paul because they're very devoted. But all I'm saying is, this is a guy that's going to bring out that vote, that same vote that I talked about coming out against Hillary. If it's Rand, they're not just going to turn out against Hillary. They're going to turn out for Rand. So I can see why the Democrats and NBC would be attacking this guy because they're terrified of him. They want Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio on the ballot or Ted Cruz because then Hillary would stand a chance. Against Rand,
I was going to say those three,
she's going to slaughter her.
Because she could beat them. Right. I think she could beat all three of them.
I don't think so. I don't think she could, but it'd be very close. Whereas if you look at the polls right now, if you look at polls, and again, these polls are kind of shitty, but if you look at polls in swing states, Paul is actually starting to edge Hillary.
Well, this is where even I've heard Hannity say, though, that the Republicans have an uphill battle because, quote-unquote, the electoral map is not favorable to Republicans. And he's right. There are a lot of swing states that if they go blue and they're leaning it right this minute, even if it was Hillary, she would probably win. Not by much, but a lot. And I think his point is, someone like, unless they elect someone who, if they put someone up that's very beatable, they're going to lose. And they would deserve to. It's kind of his point. And it's funny. Hannity tells the truth if you really listen to what he's actually saying through his bullshit.
Sometimes.
The actual words he speaks. Like, if you listen to the idea, he has a way of, like, putting forward the truth but masking it in a way that makes it seem like it's not.
Sometimes.
And trying to twist it around a certain way. But you can glean the actual thing.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. And I take him
definitely not Rush Limbaugh or Karl Rove.
In that instance, I take him at his word that, well, he's a shill. He's not like a outward just pundit type that just loves being the thorn at everyone's sides.
And I think one more we should touch on before we wrap up, since we brought him up, and since I'm actually kind of surprised he announced I didn't think he'd run.
No, I thought
Marco
he was going to
Rubio.
run. Yeah.
What do you think, Joe?
I don't know. I don't know a lot about him, but I guess I see him as kind of really young, really inexperienced. He also hasn't been in the Senate all that long. He's been since 2010.
Same thing,
right?
Same as Rand. He was the
as long as
the
right,
Tea Party
same one, right.
He was another one that was a Tea Party candidate, beat the mainstream Republican. Charlie Crist is the guy he beat. Crist still ran as an independent.
No, he
ran as an independent, and Rubio handed them both their asses. He got a majority in a three-way race. He was that popular.
I mean,
he gives me the creeps.
Well, yeah, and he just seems to me to be such a chameleon. That he was Tea Party when he needed to be, but then like he was working with Democrats, and it was really funny hearing Hannity like pump him up so much. There was a while where Hannity was cursing his name for even daring to even so much as speak to Democrats on immigration reform. Like, how dare he? He just seems to me to be kind of your dyed in the wool like white college Republican. He's not white, but like a white college Republican type.
We should talk about ethnicity.
That just is kind of an opportunist and. He will do or say a certain thing if it's convenient. I don't think he's that principled, honestly.
No, he's not. Now, here's the thing. This is why I don't like Marco Rubio. And it's interesting, you say you haven't heard about him. I've actually researched this man a little bit, and I do have some information. I know he's Cuban.
I know that.
So, first of all, to me, he's kind of like a brown Paul Ryan.
It's funny, there's two Cubans in the race. I just thought of that.
Who's the other one? Oh,
Ted.
Ted, right. So, but he was, he wasn't born in Cuba. this guy was brought as a small. No, he couldn't have been. He was born here. He was born here, but his parents
came over from '59. They fled.
Right. They fled. So, first of all, first things first. He, just like you have the token black guy. Now Republicans have discovered this new thing. We need a token Hispanic. So let's put a Cuban from Florida who ran from Cuba. Most of the people who fled from Cuba were very rich, moneyed interests. They were people that were with Fulgencio Bautista. Not
Right, they were
necessarily with
juiced
him,
in,
but they were people that were in the elite, and they were going to get slaughtered by the communists. Not that I'm supporting the communists, not that that was okay, but just to point out, he's not necessarily representative of Hispanics in this country. One, Cuba is the Caribbean. It's very different from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, where most Hispanics in this country are from. Cuba is a very special case.
I mean, I've been to Miami and I've lived in California. They're different places.
Very different. And secondly, this is a moneyed interest. This is not, it's just they want to present him as representative, but he's not. Just like Obama is supposedly black, but really his black father was Kenyan, so he's nothing to do with black Americans. I think
he fills in other demographic. He's young.
Right. And that's the other thing.
They can say, hey, look, we got a young guy running.
Yeah, how'd that work with Paul Ryan?
I think, honestly, he's running probably his realistic expectation if you get past the bullshit and talk to him honestly over a beer. It's like, I'm going to run. I'm going to say some stuff. If I lose, whatever. I'll just go back to the Senate. No harm, no foul. And if I get a VP nod like Biden, I'm a young dude,
he's
fine.
A young guy.
And then I can run on my president's record in 8 years or whatever it is.
So here's the thing.
I'll bet that's his idea.
Here's the thing is he's a young guy. So another thing about him besides all that is youth appeal. Republicans desperately need youth appeal, but they completely missed the boat that you don't have to be young to appeal to the youth.
Oh my
Who
God.
appealed to the youth last time?
Obama.
Ron. No.
Oh, Ron, you're right. Yeah, the old guy, which is funny.
They by far the oldest guy in the race who's pushing 80 now. That's who all the young people were behind. They put Paul Ryan on the ticket with Romney exactly for that purpose because they knew that there was such a hard time appealing to them, and it didn't work, did it?
I just came up with the horror ticket from the Republican side. And don't Bush Rubio?
No.
Oh, Florida Republican ticket?
No, it's never going to happen. And that
would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It would, but here's my third
Hey, talk about the team that would carry Florida, right?
I know. No, and it wouldn't. That'd be hilarious. Now, those two stuff. Hey, Romney didn't carry Wisconsin. Or Massachusetts. Well, Massachusetts you can get him in
Michigan,
Wisconsin.
Romney was from Michigan.
Ryan was from Wisconsin.
You mean Ryan? Oh, right.
Romney didn't carry Wisconsin. I said it. I knew what I was saying. Rubio would be a vice, not a president.
Yeah,
right?
I get
what you're saying. Now, that's the third appeal. Is Florida? Florida is very, very important. It's not quite Ohio, but it's up there.
It's got enough electoral votes for it to matter. Look at 2000.
It's a huge deal, right? Yeah. And this other thing. Look, Rubio's from Florida. Jeb Bush. This is becoming a thing now, where we can't really have. We can't have New England Republicans because they're too far to the left, and we can't have Southern Republicans because they're too far to the right.
Yeah.
Florida! No, that's stupid.
Wow, watch that's our field this time next year. How funny would that be?
Right. So
you got Hillary Warren versus Jeb Rubio. Boy, I wonder who's going to win that one.
That'd be terrible.
God, I'm just kidding.
No, right? You're gonna be nightmares here, Joe. Giving our listeners nightmares too. Now, here's the thing about
vote in your primary. It's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I'm with Joe there, and not for those guys. Here's the thing about Rubio. Now, as far as policy-wise, I really don't see why this guy calls himself Tea Party. Because you're saying he's flip-flopped. I have never seen him flip-flop. When he ran, now again, this is Florida, it's a swing state.
Why would a Tea Party guy be talking immigration reform?
Well, hold on, we'll get to that. Not even getting there. I mean, he's Cuban, so at least you can maybe say that. But just economic policy, social policy, foreign policy. Everything he said, okay, from the start. Yes, he ran on this, my parents came over here with their clothes on their back. Bullshit, by the way. And, I'm an immigrant, and they made it, and da-da-da-da-da. So it's all about the pull yourself up by the bootstraps, capitalism, free market. No. I agree, except the problem is he doesn't. Okay? Because his parents were not poor. First of all, it's complete crap. Just because you're an immigrant doesn't mean you're poor.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it does not. Look at Obama's dad. And secondly, if you look at his policies, he's pro-war. It's always been. I mean, he's openly pro, and this is actually a very common thing. I mean, I was born in the USSR. My parents were refugees, or are refugees, and I'm a refugee. And a lot of people who came out of the communist bloc, remember Cuba, communism, he and I have that in common, right? A lot of people from there are very neocon-minded. Being like this, being very anarchist, very anti-government is actually quite rare. They agree with the warmongering because they were dissidents. They were dissidents against an enemy of the U.S. So they come over here and they're super patriotic and pro-war. Now, I'll give Rubio credit. He's consistent. But in my opinion, at least, that's not a Tea Party message. And when it comes to economic policy, he's very pro-business, pro-corporate, not really free market. Now, you could make the argument a lot of Florida Republicans. Alan West is another one. There's a psychopath that's thankfully not
He's a guy
running.
that should be in a brig somewhere.
Should be,
anyway.
yes. Jeb Bush also. But I think he is one that rode the Tea Party wave, was never really Tea Party. And now you got guys like Karl Rove and the Republican Party going, hey, look, there's a guy who's under 45. He's Latino. He's Cuban, right? So he's an immigrant. And he's got this whole... People think he's Tea Party, whereas Jeb Bush is not. So if Jeb Bush goes to shit, let's get behind shit. Rubio, Marco, shut up about immigration, dude. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right, and let's talk about that. We can finish out on that. So his thing on immigration was basically he was actually supporting some of the immigration reform, right? Not quite the way that, not the Obama way, but some of the mainstream Republican way, and not the
they
Rand
wanted to
Paul,
pass
Ted
a bill.
Cruz way, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's always been a neocon Republican establishment position. George W. had that position.
Yes, he did.
Jeb has that position.
Reagan
Jeb's
had that position.
Right. So how is this? I don't see how he's inconsistent. I don't agree with him. I don't think he's a good candidate.
That's not a Tea Party value, though.
Right. There's the only thing Tea Party about him is that he said he's Tea Party to win the primaries.
Yeah, I know.
Well, congratulations.
I can say
Marco.
I'm black to try to win a primary. Doesn't make it so. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so I don't see his candidacy as very serious. I do see him maybe edging Jeb out completely. And just
I don't know.
kind of
Jeb has so much money behind him.
That's true. So honestly, those two are going to butt heads and they're going to fight for that 20% that still wants their focus. This is going to be great. You're going to have, instead of one newt, you're going to have two.
Be interesting.
Mwah. Wonderful.
Keep your eyes peeled, keep your drinks and your alcoholic beverages ready, and your drinking games sharp and fresh.
This will be wonderful.
Should
now,
be interesting.
There's actually one more we didn't touch on, but I didn't really want to touch on him. I kind of want to leave him for a later show because I feel like he's going to give us lots of material, and that's
Huck?
Scott
Oh,
Walker.
Mr. Walker. Yeah.
Because he's surprised me in a lot of ways, but we don't have time for him. And
he deserves more of a show because he's a major shithead, and I want to talk about that
I
more.
don't think he's a major shithead, but we'll definitely address him in a later show because I definitely want to do just basically what's surprising me about him. We'll touch on one thing is he's really taken off in New England. If you look at New England Republican primaries, he's winning those. He's topping 30% in the primaries, not against Hillary, but against all their opponents. I'm like, really?
We'll see if that lasts. He seems to me to be like, because he was so early at, and actually he hasn't officially announced.
He has
yet.
not. No, that's one of the things.
It's so early in the game that it's almost like the anticipation level is because he's such an unknown on the national stage.
Right.
That maybe there's just kind of a new car smell effect going on with this guy, but we'll see. It's funny the new car smell type candidate. A lot of times, I mean, Obama being an exception. You know, they a lot of times they end up flaming out, but I don't know.
I feel like
the later election, it seems like the new guys have the edge because you can't hang them as much info and much sound bites, things they've contradicted themselves on.
Hillary,
like
Jeb,
Hillary, I'm looking in your direction, or Jeb,
Rick Perry. I guess last thing to close out on Scott Walker. Your show's getting long, but it's okay. Here's what I feel is making him appeal to New Englanders, New England Republicans. He's another Chris Christie. That's really the best comparison. He's not
a
all
union
that
buster,
conservative.
pugnacious
He's
type.
a steamroller. He's just very personally just and yes, big union buster. And unions, and I know a lot of union Americans are going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Unions are becoming increasingly unpopular in New England and in the Midwest, especially among the young. And he's a younger guy,
New England
too.
used to be like Union Central,
Wisconsin. It doesn't get any more union than Wisconsin. That's where Bob Lafayette came from. And yet, now, because unions have become extremely corrupt in these states, they used to be a good thing. I'm not against unions, but the unions that exist specifically in those states, especially the government employee unions, they're completely out of control. And they, just like Hillary, they have this propaganda machine that makes it look like everyone's in support of them, but so you need someone like Chris Christie or Scott Walker to finally put them in their place. So I feel like this is why he's catching on, and he's kind of taken Chris Christie's place as the New England Republican, even though he's not from New England. Now, the problem with him is, and Joe hit the nail right on the head here, nobody really knows what he would do as president. Because there's so many things you don't get to do as governor of Wisconsin that you would have to do as president.
But then again, governors have a habit of getting elected. Historically, governors and war generals, when you look at the way back, where senators and congresspeople have a harder road usually.
They do, but we don't know what he will do, and I kind of want to see more from him before we address him beyond.
Who'd have thought a governor from Arkansas would win presidency? But hey, whatever.
Right, but it happened.
Yeah, anything can happen in this election. Really, anything. So
it's true.
Good note to wrap up on.
Thank you for listening, and again, a lot of the realignment stuff we've been talking about seems to be happening, and I feel like next time is when it's going to really hit the fan. Because if Hillary goes down in flames like we're predicting, it's going to be like 2008 for.
No, the Democrats have to have an identity crisis. They have to. They really kind of don't, because that's when Elizabeth Warren takes over completely.
I disagree. And I disagree for this reason. There's a lot of, let's call them neocon Democrats now. Well, there's the Lincoln Chafee and Charlie Crist. But there's also kind of a lot of conservative Democrats. I mean, even without Hillary, because Hillary just has such a dirty background. He just has so many skeletons. But there's a lot of the other Democrats, and even potentially in this race, even Jim Webb, or what's his name, Martin O'Malley. These guys are pretty conservative. There's not only are a lot of them in the Democratic Party, but if you have a Rand Paul go to the White House, you're going to have a kind of an exodus from the Republican Party of the Jeb Bush side. So you're saying that Elizabeth Warren takes over. I disagree. I think that party is almost going to be divided 50-50 between progressives and old school Democrats. And my prediction is still that the progressives eventually find their way into the Republican Party as opposed to taking over the Democratic.
Well, maybe we'll see. It will be a civil war. Kind of like the Republicans dissolved into two factions after Bush. So
but regardless of which way that goes, I can't wait to see the Democratic establishment lynched. Those guys need to go right down the same garbage chute that the Republican establishment went down. It can't happen fast enough. I think Joe and I agree on that completely.
Yep.
And on that note...
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Greetings from Texas. I'm Neurotoxin.
I'm Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos. We can be found on the internet at edgeofchaospodcast.com. That's edgeofchaospodcast.com. Contact the show, edgeofchaospodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at edgeofchaosshow. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/theedgeofchaos. Neurotoxins blog can be found at neurotoxins with an S, fyg.blogspot.com. For Neurotoxin, this is Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos.